Have you ever felt completely lost, like you're wandering in the desert with no end in sight? That's exactly where Moses and the Israelites found themselves. Imagine this, a vast, unforgiving wilderness stretching out in every direction. The sun beats down relentlessly, the sand shifts under your feet, and the one thing you need most, water, is nowhere to be found. This wasn't just a short, uncomfortable trip. This was their life, day after day, week after week. They had escaped slavery in Egypt, a miraculous event. But now they faced a new kind of prison of sand and thirst. The journey had been long and incredibly difficult. They had seen wonders, for sure. The parting of the Red Sea was a story they would tell for generations. They had received manna from heaven, a daily bread that sustained them. But the human spirit can be forgetful, especially when faced with immediate hardship. And right now, the hardship was a deep, gnawing thirst. The water jars, once carefully filled, were now bone dry. The silence of the desert was broken only by the whimpers of thirsty children and the lowing of suffering livestock. The people, their hope worn thin, started to gather in small, angry groups. Their whispers grew into loud, desperate cries. They turned their frustration and fear towards the one man who had led them here, Moses. "Why did you bring us into this desert?" One man shouted, his voice raspy. "Was it to watch us die?" Another cried out, pointing to his child. "Our children and our animals will die of thirst. Were there not enough graves in Egypt that you had to bring us to this desolate place?" The anger was like a tidal wave, crashing over Moses. He could feel the weight of their despair, the sharp sting of their accusations. He had led them out of bondage, following God's command, but now they saw him as their tormentor. His heart ached for them. He understood their fear. He was thirsty too, but he also knew that panic and blame would lead them nowhere. He had to turn to the only source of true help he had ever known. Finding a quiet place away from the crowd, Moses fell to his knees. The sand was hot, but he barely noticed. He cried out to God, his voice filled with the anguish of his people. "Lord," he prayed, "what should I do for these people? They are on the verge of turning against me, of losing all. Hope, please, show me what to do." And in the silence of the desert, a voice, calm and powerful, answered him. It was the voice of God. "Do not be afraid, Moses. I have heard the cries of my people. Go and stand before them. Take the staff in your hand, the same staff you used to perform wonders in Egypt. But this time, I want you to do something different. See that large rock over there? I will stand there before you. Gather the people in front of all of them. You will not strike it with your staff. You will simply speak to the rock, and it will pour out its water. There will be enough for everyone, for all the people and their livestock. Speak to a rock." The instruction was unusual, to say the least. In the moment of intense pressure, with an entire nation on the brink of rebellion, Moses was to have a conversation with a piece of stone, but he had learned to trust God's commands, no matter how strange they seemed. He rose to his feet, his resolve strengthened. He took his brother Aaron with him and called the people together. "Listen, you rebels," Moses declared, his voice ringing with frustration and authority. The people fell silent, their eyes fixed on him. They gathered around the massive rock formation that God had pointed out, a silent, stony giant in the middle of the barren landscape. The crowd was a sea of anxious faces, waiting, watching. What would happen now? Another speech, another promise that felt empty in the face of their thirst. Moses stood before the rock, staff in hand. The weight of the moment was immense. All eyes were on him. He remembered God's command to speak to the rock, but in his anger and frustration with the people's constant complaining, his faith wavered for just a split second. Driven by the pressure and his own human emotion, he raised his staff high in the air. Instead of speaking, He brought the staff down hard, striking the solid rock arms. Nothing happened. The silence was deafening. He lifted his staff again, his face flushed with exertion and emotion, and struck the rock a second time with all his might. And then, a miracle. A crack appeared in the face of the stone. At first, it was just a trickle, a dark line of moisture against the dry surface. But then, with a great gush, a torrent of pure, clean water burst forth from the rock. It wasn't a small spring. It was a river, pouring out onto the thirsty ground. The water cascaded down, forming pools and streams. A collective gasp went through the crowd, followed by a roar of pure joy and relief. People rushed forward, laughing and crying at the same time. They cupped their hands, drinking deeply. They filled their empty jars to the brim. Children splashed in the cool, life-giving water, their faces lit up with delight. The animals, sensing the change, eagerly drank from the newly formed pools. The desert, a moment ago a symbol of death and despair, was now a place of life and celebration. God, in His infinite mercy, had provided for His people once again, even when Moses' faith faltered. Even when he acted out of anger instead of perfect obedience, God's promise held true. He provided water for the thirsty and saved them from certain death. It was a powerful reminder that God's grace is greater than our failures. The water from the rock was more than just hydration. It was a symbol of God's unwavering love and His ability to bring life from the most lifeless of places. This incredible event taught the Israelites a vital lesson. Their journey through the wilderness was filled with unimaginable challenges: thirst, hunger, enemies, and their own doubts. But through it all, one thing remained constant. God never stopped caring for them. He was their guide, their provider, and their protector. Even when they complained, even when they lost faith, His love for them never wavered. And so, with their thirst quenched and their spirits renewed, the journey through the wilderness continued, one step at a time, under the watchful eye of a God who could make water flow from a stone. This story reminds us that even in our own deserts, when we feel lost and abandoned, hope can spring from the most unexpected places. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content that explores these timeless tales of faith and perseverance. See you in the next video.